guy, his laser wasn't lined up quite right, he got 3.6, so the theory is nice, but in reality, I just don't see getting quite the uniform that you want, and that's one of the reasons when you look at your appraisals, you go, wait a second, he didn't make an adjustment on this one. Well, if it's less than 100 square feet, it's kind of your fluff area, we'll call it.
Okay, and then I guess just to revisit the well and septic, if it's less than 50 feet, it's gonna be an appraiser call.
If the appraiser notes it,
I should say an underwriter call.
Yeah, the underwriter won't know about it in theory unless the appraiser observes it and reports it. Now, the appraiser might go to that house and, oh, here's our well, and I don't know where the septic field is. More times than not, that's going to be the case, and that's where the laxes come in with FHA, I'll say, and even VA. Years ago, when you had to sketch it, you kind of knew exactly where that stuff was. But in the interest of speeding up the process, and maybe it doesn't make a difference, maybe it conforms to local standards.
Grandfathered in, right?
Either grandfathered in, or you know what, they just say, hey, when it was built, that's kind of how we looked at things, and we're not making people change, and you know what, if somebody builds a house today, sure, it's gonna be a new set of codes, and you're gonna have to comply with that, much like, you know, when you're dealing with those fuses. We're not talking new construction where somebody's coming out there from the city to go, this isn't gonna work. You're talking about, it's been there for 30, 50, 100 years, and it's worked fine for them. They don't need air conditioning.
They'll still note it though, right?
A lot will, if they've been doing it for a while.
But some, you're saying
Some will not. Some will not even, you know what, they may write it up, they may not. Not every appraiser is gonna sit and describe, well, we have 2 furnaces, 2 central air units, 200 amp service. Some of them don't know. Some of them are gonna walk in there and go, okay, yeah, it's got, oh, these are different. I'm used to seeing switches, and now I've got, yeah, okay. So if they're theoretically FHA or VA certified, they should note some of these things, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker. And it's not necessarily that the underwriter is gonna come back and say, oh, you need to put in new electrical. Well, if it's typical for the area and it's grandfathered in and acceptable, who are you to start telling people to tear their electric systems out and put, I mean, it's just not realistic.
I had one seller that had to put in a new well because he was short a foot.
Oh, God.
1 foot.
Yikes.
That's above my pay grade. I'm not going out there measuring the well, and you know what?
Crazy. We had to have the well and septic guy back out twice because he came up with 2 different footages. The first time, you know, it happened to be 49. The second time he went out, oh, you know what, I made a mistake, it was 50. Well, then they didn't believe him.
No.
So, yeah, it was a mess.
You know what?
$10,000 later it cost the seller.
They got
because
off
they
light.
wanted the deal to go. Yeah.
They got off cheap. I had to do mine a while back, and it was funny because when I bought my house, of course, oh, it's 700 square feet or 700 feet down. I said, okay, yeah, whatever, I don't care, it works. Well, then of course, the coldest day in January when it stopped working, all of a sudden it hit in the water. That's unusual. Well, they came out and they were nice enough to do it in one day. They put the new PVC in, took out all the old galvanized. Of course, you know how it goes when you do these repairs. Oh, the pressure tank's too small. Of course it is. Well, then we gotta do a new electric for the new pressure tank. I'm like, just keep bringing it up.
Oh, man.
You know, do you want this pump or that? I'm like, do I look like I'm in the well business? I don't know. I want the one that lasts forever. Put that one in. Okay, well, we can do this and we can do that, and yeah. Then he's like, well, that'll be 15,000, and I'm like, okay, I hope you guys take Visa, because that's the only way this is getting paid. He's like, yeah, we can take Visa. I'm like, yeah, fantastic, thanks. But they told me then, it's actually only down 500. Like, what happened to the other 200? I said, I got a statement from the previous, you know, when they did the well inspection and septic inspection and all that stuff. Like, it shows right here, and he's like, well, I don't know what that is, but we only put in 500, you know, feet of PVC, so that's what we're charging for. I'm like, 500 is better than 700, I guess, but how do you know? And 1 foot, oh my God, does it make a difference? I don't know who noted it or who asked for it to be changed, but it seems trivial outside of the $10,000. How about other questions?
I've got one more from an agent that's online. What deduction, if any, do appraisers factor in for concession amounts on the MLS?
That's another hot topic. It's a good one to bring up. They're actually making some changes from what I've read from, I want to say the Realtor Association I belong to said they're going to require, I think, you guys to put in a sale price and then possibly an adjusted price minus concessions, if I read it correctly. Right now, it's tough to say because you get a concession of $2,000, which for a while, if we go back to 2020, I think probably the last time I spoke with you guys, it was $2,000, $2,000, $1,500, $3,000. All this stuff was sellers paying the buyer's closing costs. Well, that's fine. In some cases, the appraisal is going to look at it and say, okay, we were listed for $250, we sold for $253, and we got $3,000 in closing cost concession. That one's pretty simple. You can minus dollar for dollar, say it was $3,000, and go from there. And the true price was actually $250. We just bumped it up so that the seller didn't have to lose the $3,000. When I get into a case where we've got concessions of $10,000, $12,000, now I start looking a little closer, going, wait a second, what happened here? You know, I might make a phone call and go, was the pool table worth that much, or what were they? You know? Oh no, they're giving them money for carpet and this and that, and I'm like, well, I didn't see that listed, so yeah, I didn't know that. So, but that might be a case where the $10,000 would apply. Back in 2020, this was happening right and left with closing costs. A lot of times the sale price was $255 and there was a $3,000 concession for closing costs. Well, if the contract price was the same as the list price, I probably wouldn't make an adjustment. You know, that was just sort of standard procedure back then before we got into all the crazy bidding wars now, where you wouldn't make an adjustment if in fact it looked like it didn't affect the overall value. You know, in certain cases it's obvious, other times it's like, well, everybody's doing it, so how much did that affect the sale price? You know, would they have paid another $3,000 more? Probably. You know, and today is a great comparison because you're not seeing it very often. At least I don't see it very often. Occasionally you'll get the concession, but more times than not, hey, you want this house? You're already paying $10,000 over list, so good luck with getting any kind of closing costs out of me. It's not happening.
Right.
You know, that's most appraisers are going to see it that way. There was a while where you could deduct dollar for dollar. Then at one point, Fannie Mae said, "Well, you have to interpret: is it really 50% or is it a percentage of the concession?" That's just confusing as hell. So
Yeah.
most of your appraisers are not gonna try and figure that mystery out because it's, you know, now you're getting into a very subjective area, one that's hard to support and say, no, I know it's only 60% guaranteed. That's all I can do. So, but yeah, if you're selling that townhouse down the street and you say, okay, we know we got a, you know, the carpet's a little suspect, whatever. You know, we had $245 on there. We crossed that out. We went to $250, and then we threw a $5,000 concession in. Might raise a flag. You know, again, today is a tough market because they're paying, you know, in my mind, more than they probably should be. But we got low inventory, and like we talked about earlier, what is the market? Well, if the market says, hey, 6 people want this house, they're all willing to pay $275. I listed it for $250. That appraiser better know what the hell he's doing and coming in at $275. Otherwise, you know, he's wrong. I'm right. My CMA was right, but these are 6 people willing to pay that. I'd say that's great. I still have to support my value. If I can't support my value with either what you've given me or what I was able to find, my hands are kind of tied. Now, once that sale closes, now we've got new information to work with. Now we have a $275 sale. So then everybody in that complex wants to refinance because my house is worth $25,000 more. Look, this one just closed. May hold up for a while, and right now we're, you know, you're kind of looking at all the sales in the past 12 months or even the past 6 months if you're fortunate enough to have them. A lot of these exaggerated sales, higher sales, over list, you know, and that's the market data we're working with. What will be interesting is, you know, none of our crystal balls are working today, I'm assuming. What's going to happen 2 years from now? That 5% down client or the 3% down, I want to get rid of my PMI, I got to refi. I come back out there and I go, sorry, Jim, you know what, these are kind of, you know, where we're at today. These are the sales. We got more inventory to work with and the prices are lower. You might be stuck with PMI for a while. You know, we don't know. I always make the comparison with the stock market, and I thought December 401k is crushing it. It's just going up. I can retire in 5 years. And all of a sudden January hit, and then March, and then April, and I'm like, Jesus, I'm like working forever, because what happened to all the money that I made? If I was smart like everyone, I would have taken that money out, and then it could have went down and have been great, just like if I'd have sold my house last July as opposed to the year before, I would have made this much money, and then I'd rent for 2 years because I know exactly when that market's going to turn, and then I'll buy it then. That's what I'm going to do. Well, it sounds nice in theory.
Thank you.
Anyway, any other questions that you guys have?
Janie has one. Go ahead, Janie.
Hi there, everybody. Hi there, Paul. I don't think you have the screen up there, but there's like 9 of us that are online right now.
Oh, I thought I had a small audience.
Obviously, because of the issues, I have no idea where you started, what you've answered already. I do have a couple questions, and I really apologize if you've already answered these, but I know one of them specifically affects somebody who is online right now, because this happened to her, regarding the appeal process and the appraiser reviewing it, and then the appraisal coming back even lower
There we
than
go.
he originally. Was that discussed yet?
We did cover it, and the short answer is yes, they are able to do that, because as I explained before, you're admitting essentially that the reconsideration of value comparables are better than what you used in the initial report. And if you agree with that, and the new ones in fact do show a lower value, yes, the appraiser can do it. I don't think it happens very often. I mean, we're talking about one case that you mentioned here. I don't expect you'll see a lot of them in the future, because it's it kind of relates back to did I do my job the way I was supposed to initially, and hopefully I did, and the comparables I chose were the best available to support the estimated value. Now you come back with 3 comps that all support a lower value, and I go, geez, what was I thinking? I should have used these ones to begin with and come in at a lower value, which is not what anyone wants to hear, I understand, but that's one possibility. And I think with TJ, we talked about this before. Be careful what you send the appraiser. Make sure that if you're going to make a case for a higher value, let's hope that